Hey everybody, welcome to PDQ Live. We're talking about issues with deployments this time.
We don't have that.
I tried to make my own list and then we asked the experts, and my list was very inaccurate. So
It was pretty good.
So we talked to our solutions department on what's the most common issues we get reported on, and they came back with the answer.
Don't tell me. I want to guess.
Okay.
Can I guess?
Yep.
Okay. It's DNS.
It's on the list.
Yes. Okay.
All right. But there's more than that. There's a lot to cover. So we're just going to kind of cover basic troubleshooting to try to track down where the issue might be.
Okay. And
then we'll kind of go over some of the more common ones.
Okay.
That was very loud. But by the way, I'm sorry for everybody's ears. I kind of shouted that one. But the first thing, and this was Andrew pointing out, is if you're having a problem with deployment, test to see if it installs without PDQ deploy. Just because if it's doing silently on your own, but not within deploy, you know it's definitely a setting in there. But it's just a good test to remove that as a possibility, see if it is that one.
Okay, so I have a question just to start off. Are these custom packages? These aren't packages in the software repository, right?
So the ones that are in the package library have all been tested and vetted and sent out. So most likely, if you're getting an error with the package library, then there is some sort of setting within deploy or there's an issue somewhere else.
Okay.
If it's a custom one, that's where you do want to do the test to make sure it doesn't silently.
Okay.
So I have here on deploy, I removed the silent parameters, just like if you go to run it and you get that to pop up, then you're not going to get proper reporting when you go to do the install.
Okay.
That's just saying, try to get that to work without deploy first, and once it's functioning, then test it in deploy.
Okay.
And I think that would be
narrow it down.
a pretty good one. And there's my error. But other than that, the common thing is there's a lot of default network ports and connection things that we need to cover. We actually have a document on that one. The defaults are basically everything you need for printer or file sharing in. So your TCP 137, I'm going to look it up because I'm not going to remember it all. Yeah, so TCP 137.139 and UDP 137.138. Those are, if you have file and printer sharing enabled, those are probably already open for you. And if you are using the central server version of deploy, then we default to these ones here, the 7337 and 6336. But when you're doing the upgrade, you can set that to whatever you want.
Yeah.
So whatever you have set as your port on your server, you just want to make sure that the TCP for that is also enabled on your communication.
And this is set up when you first start, right? So say this worked great for 2 years and all of a sudden you start getting these errors. Maybe you just put a new firewall in and these ports aren't open, right?
Yeah. So
that's a use case?
Yeah, that's a good, if something's changed within your network, especially with the firewall, that's probably a good bet.
Okay.
We have this getting started guide for anyone that's new. They want to see this kind of goes over step by step, the basics to get everything up and running. If you think reading is stupid and you want to hear the sultry sounds of my voice,
I do.
We have the exact same thing where I just go over each of the steps and I talk about it.
Look at your beard.
Yeah, that was a different beard.
Different man.
That was before the man, or what do you call it? The face gardener?
The face gardener, yes.
Before that. Okay.
Yep. So what is this, like 18 videos?
And so much, Jordan.
I basically go through a lot of the same stuff in there. So if it depends on how you learn best. If reading does it for you, this link here, and I believe we're going to have this in the description as well.
Yes, Andrew's going to put all these in the description.
Looks like he's already got it up in the chat too. So that's reading. And if you don't want to read, but you just want to have my just hilarious take because I'm a true gem of the internet.
I agree.
You can look it up on PDQ there. It's just already set for its own collection.
Okay.
You're an IT fluencer.
IT fluencer. Here we go.
You really are. You true. It's true. Yep. Okay.
All right. And then the last thing I want to do, just kind of a pre-test thing before we go into kind of what the causes are, is we have a tool built in called Remote Repair. Just come to help open Remote Repair.
Wait, what?
So
help Remote Repair.
Yep.
Okay.
So this one, you can come in, you can enter any computer. I probably should have one ready to go. We have Bugs Bunny, right?
Yeah. You love Bugs Bunny.
I use it for a lot of stuff. This is going to go through and test all of the defaults, make sure everything's working in there. Everything that PDQ is going to need to run, this will come back. And if you get an X here, that's already going to tell you where your problem is. So you got your IPC hidden share admin dollar, the service is created, and it has read privileges. So if this comes back all healthy, it's probably going to be something else, but if this is going to basically say, is your environment set up for PDQ to work properly? This tool is awesome.
I wonder how many people actually use this, honestly.
We should advertise it more. I know a long time ago back in the day, we released a version of the product that didn't have it, and it was considered a big enough issue that we pushed out an emergency release.
Okay.
Remote repair is extremely valuable for troubleshooting. It's going to find a whole bunch of the issues.
Okay, so many questions. Can I run it on more than one machine at a time?
I don't know. Let's find out.
I want to run it on all the machines, Jordan.
I'm going to have to go find another. I'm drawing a blank on computer names. Here you go, Porky Pig.
What if I want to run the entire network? Will it freak out?
Well, so it just has other computers, so I don't think it'll be for all.
Oh, okay.
But in general, if it's going out to one, and I mean, depending on your network segmentation.
Okay.
I'm going to see if Common does do it with two. I don't think it will, but
someone wants a command line version of remote repair. So that one's mad.
Well, it's because I did a comment. Basically, it tried to say, looking for computer, Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, instead of looking at each one. So it does one at a time.
Oh, one at a time.
Yeah, I was testing live to answer your question there. But this is a good example. If you get this many red X's, then you've got many problems.
Okay.
Many problems. Command line. I'm actually going to go and check. Someone said they'd love to have the command line for that. That's not what I want. Yeah, it is. We're going to open up a command prompt, and we're going to see if it's a built-in command line tool. And that's because I didn't run as an administrator. We're going to run this again, only as an administrator.
Let's do it.
I've actually never even tested to see. The command line's got more stuff in it than I expect, and I never think to check. Let's see. Is remote repair listed? Nope. So that,
could you hurry and just do that real quick? Just on the show?
I think the real Jordan might get a bit irate with me if I start messing with the product.
Let's find out.
I'm not.
Okay.
I feel like he could take me in a fist fight.
Okay, so this is the kind of thing that, knowing me, I would obsess over running this because I'm that person.
It is a fantastic first step if you know your networks, the ports are open and everything. It's a great first step to see where you're at. A lot of times it could be like the admin dollar is a pretty common one to have access to that.
Okay, so do this before you do a ticket, I'm guessing.
I mean, if you haven't done it and you open up a ticket, probably the first thing they're going to tell you to do is do the remote repair, just because it really does come up with a lot of useful information.
Okay, I love that. Love it, love it, love it.
All right, so that's just kind of a general troubleshooting before we get hand. We're going to dive into the big ones, the issues.
Okay.
And as you said, the first one, DNS.
Of course, it's always DNS. Okay.
So in deploy, if you get some sort of result like no such host is known, or there's some variation of that, it usually means that it's not connecting, which can be a DNS issue, but it can be DNS on two sides. So the one we always think of, or at least the one I go to, if I can't access it, is the DNS on the server itself. And you can do like the flush DNS or see if that fixes it. But a lot of times if DNS is set properly, it's on the server, and the client machine can't connect back, you're going to get a different kind of error. I mean, it's still going to be in the general terms of can't respond back, but you want to make sure if you know the DNS is fine on the server, try it from the client too, just to make sure, because it could be a both ways thing. I think the more common is going to be from server out, but the DNS has to function both ways.
Okay.
And this comes into a lot of things. If you have a lot of like laptops that go on and off the network or VPN users, it's just DNS can become bogged down. We have several webcasts with, I think everyone has Brig in here because
DNS.
I don't think he enjoys being the DNS guy because he is highly technical, but I am going to go with he's the DNS guy. So every time we have a DNS podcast, Brig is here and he goes through a lot of the cleanup. If you're feeling extremely aggressive.
You're going to talk about your script, aren't you?
I do.
And my gosh, your script freaks me out. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I do have a script that you can run on your DNS server and it will aggressively remove stale records. Very aggressively. But it's not technically going to break anything because as DNS updates, it's just going to basically go out to the machine and update everything. But I have seen where people have had value. I would be nervous to run it myself. That was one I got asked, hey, can you do this with PowerShell? And and it can get real aggressive. So be careful. But to me, the good one for that is if you're looking for just like a one-time cleanup, like if you have it run on a schedule, you're probably asking for problems. If you're looking for a one-time, there might be a DNS thing, run that script, it's going to clear out every stale record and maybe a couple that are close to being stale.
If you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. But if you know what you're doing, it's probably good, right?
Yeah, and so just a one-time thing just is going to clear out all those records, and then as machines check back in, it'll update. It doesn't delete every record, but just the ones that flagged as stale based on a very aggressive parameter.
Well, what's the parameter? That's my question.
I'd have to go look at the script again. I just remember...
Okay.
There's a setting that says if it's past a very tight deadline, it will absolutely remove it.
Please say it's like 30 days. It's not like 3 days, right?
No, it's less than 3 days.
Gosh,
you could have that script run every 15 minutes, I believe.
Oh my, okay, no, you're scaring me now. Yeah. Okay, go on.
It's very good. But I'm saying if you're looking for, like, you want a fresh start at DNS and you want to make sure there's no stale records, that'll do it.
No, okay, I'm scared. I'm going to have a panic attack. Let's move on.
That's actually a very common response. We do have as a help document as well as some DNS troubleshooting.
Okay, and we're going to include this.
Yep, and one of the big things from this, which we might think of, is the NTLM issue. If you've disabled NTLM, you might have some different issues, as well as if you get an error for Kerberos.
Right.
And that doesn't mean the authentication necessarily failed. It just basically said when you went to authenticate, the machine's not where you said it was, so there's a lack of trust within the protocol there.
Yeah.
So if you see NTLM, it's not necessarily it's a bad password. It could be that is also a DNS issue. I'm
going to imagine with COVID and the remote workforce, these errors probably came up more. Like you said, with the laptops coming off and on. I would imagine this occurred.
So yeah, if everyone's a desktop in the office, I imagine probably never. But depending on the amount of remote workforce or how often you have people coming in and out, it can get dicey pretty quick.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Okay. Oh, see, people want your script. There's a bunch of statists out there. Okay. Oh my gosh.
All right, so there's the PDQ GitHub repository, bonus content, and should we see if I can just find it for you?
Can we have them sign a non-disclosure? I mean, not a non-disclosure. What's the liability thing? So you're good. I mean, should we get that up front?
I'm pretty clear. Like it's one of those, like, it absolutely works. See if we can't find what we put it in there. Stale DNS records. So yeah, GitHub, bonus content, stale DNS records. There's the remove stale records. It's very, very aggressive. It's very, very aggressive.
So you're saying it's very aggressive?
Oh my gosh. You guys are way braver than me.
So I ran that live during a webcast and nothing broke. So
you're in a lab environment. You're not in an enterprise environment.
But the things we have done to our DNS to try to simulate the issues before, it's a good example.
Oh my gosh, you're killing me, Jordan. Okay.
All right, so it is there. It's like I said, if you want to read through it, it doesn't do anything really dangerous, because worst case scenario, even if it went through it, wiped out every record, every machine's going to check back in, and relatively quickly.
Okay.
So it might you might cause a brief outage while things check back in, but it be a blip on the radar.
Well, let's just remember, I came from broadcasting, and the TV would go offline, radio just went on off the air. So this is not something I would be able to do. But go ahead.
And I have not seen it remove an active record. So I don't know. I think you're being a worry here. If you don't want to just go with straight scorched earth,
we've met, right?
You can do just basic troubleshooting with, like, the command prompt. You can do like a trace route to see where the hops are going, and if it goes in the wrong area, there's that. Or even if you ping and it comes back with the wrong IP address, is a fantastic clue that something's wrong there.
Okay. But I can flush DNS on the target machine too. I can try things less aggressive before I go there.
But that is different, because flushing DNS basically says grab the latest from your DNS server. That script runs on the DNS server saying get rid of stale records. Right. So the flush DNS, if it's bad on the DNS server, flush DNS is just going to pull back
more bad data. Yeah. Okay.
It's just kind of the next step if you want to clean slate it to start.
Okay.
And that's kind of it for DNS. It's a network issue. It's a very common thing, but it's usually a pretty quick fix. Okay. And if it's happening often, then you might want to take a look at your scavenging. And I don't know if we have the latest webcast on that, but there's a lot of things you can do on that one that can.
Okay. Do you want to grab a couple questions?
Let's do it.
And these are ones I think we've kind of covered, but if you know a client's IP address, is there a PowerShell script command you can run to update DNS? Steve L.
So At that point, you can do what invoke command, where you specify the computer name. You just have to make sure your credentials are correct. You might need to pass through credentials with that, and that will run it against the remote one. If your DNS is working.
Yeah, but that brings back what you just said. If your DNS is mucked up, what do you do?
Well, no, because he said he knows the IP.
Oh, okay.
So, but if
Static
the routing
IP.
is wrong, if you go to the IP and the IP, but with you go IP, it's going to ignore DNS and go straight to that IP.
Yeah.
So you can do like invoke command, or you could remote in with PowerShell and run the commands against it that way. That works fine. I haven't done that one in a while. I know with invoke command, it's not just you put the block code. You have to specify that as a variable, the code that you're running, and then put that in as an argument. So instead of, because you can't pass through the entire thing, you can pass through a variable as an argument and then say, this is the code I'm running. So it's a little bit more involved than just invoke command and run it, but there's a lot of documentation out there that will help you run that one. But you can absolutely, with the IP, run that on a remote machine.
I have a feeling that Andrew could probably look that up and put it in the description.
Okay. We have one more DNS-related question for y'all.
This is going to be a DNS question. Where's Brett? Go get him.
How aggressive can I DNS? I don't want the new computer to show ASAP when setting up. High res 2.
So, I mean, this one is going to be specific to whatever environment you're in.
Yeah.
So I think it defaults to, 7 days before it scavenges.
Yeah, you can change it.
You can definitely be more aggressive in this, but the 7 days is what they put in the default. So depending on what you can tolerate or what you wouldn't, that's just a question where you're going to want to talk with your network person and find out the best number for you.
We've already established that I'm a fraidy cat. Jordan is burnt earth, so I mean.
Yeah, so you technically can do it every 15 minutes, but the default to 7 days, I think that's a bit much. I think 3 days, in my opinion, is a good one. But if you're setting up scavenging and things like that, it's in more than one place as well. To find stale records, it's a whole. It's not a single setting. You want to make sure you update it in multiple locations.
Yeah, highly dependent on your environment.
Yeah, I would talk with your network person and get their input.
Hey, PDQ said I could do this. Don't do that.
Yeah, oh, and then Mythander's Ghost in there says, using invoke command, you can do ipconfig registry DNS, which will have that machine go through and update. That is actually a fantastic idea as well. So instead of going to say refresh, it's basically telling it to, hey, check in with DNS and say, I'm me.
Yeah.
And if you have a second one in there, you might come up with a conflict. Or, I mean, by conflict, I mean, it might update on one machine before it replicates out. You might have your other machine with a different IP.
Duplicate,
So you'll get sporadic results. But eventually, the one you update will replicate out to all the machines.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's pretend like it's not DNS. Then what other issues are we going to encounter?
A big one is permissions.
Okay.
And that's just 'cause a lot of times when you're doing the software install, you're using either your account has domain admin or you're using your admin account to do the install. And by default, deploy and inventory for their background service are going to use the credential you used on install as the background service. And as general speaking, domain admin, that's going to work great. But
That freaks me out.
Yeah, but there are people that are going to come in and say, no, I want to limit this a bit more, and they change it. And that's where we start to see a lot of the permissions issues, because it's not, there's some things you might not expect that it needs that have that. So
Sure.
I don't think you're going to see permissions issues on that often, but as you move away from your install account, you're probably to see it one time, but once you get it corrected, it should be fine.
Okay. Because it gets added to groups or it gets taken away from groups, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, and so the credentials explained, we can have to share that document out there because you have your console users, you have your credentials to deploy users, you have your background service users, and all of them require different versions of access. I believe the background service is what goes through, it connects the runner, which is what does a lot of the install, and then the console user is the permissions that you use where it mimics the permission level for the install. So both of those need a different set of rules.
Yeah.
A big one for this is sometimes people have, protected?
Yeah, you shared a Microsoft one that hurt my head that was the protected user group, and if it's a member of that, it messes everything up. Is that the background service one?
Yeah, so the protected user group is a way to keep your credentials kind of sheltered. So if your background service user is in the protected users group, it no longer has the ability to connect as a service, which background service needs.
Okay.
So there is a chance where it has all the permissions, but you want to make sure it's not in that group, I think.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's the article here. So yeah, protect user security group. So if you have this set up in your environment, which I don't think is terribly uncommon because it is a good security practice.
Sure.
It's just the background service user can't be in that because we have to be able to connect as a service.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I like that one.
And then for less of the background service credentials, it's the credential used to deploy it out. Mm-hmm. I like to use just whatever has an inventory credentials.
Okay.
Because if it's out there scanning, most likely it can deploy, and you don't have to worry about if you're deploying to a massive group whether you have the right credentials, because it just says what works in inventory, and that pulls it in. It kind of removes that as a concern.
Yeah. Okay. I like it. And I'm guessing these are all things when you do a support ticket, they're like, have you done this? Have you done this? Is it this? And these are all things they ask you probably right as you call.
So after remote repair, I don't want to go. I mean, everyone over on solutions is smarter than me. So I'm sure they're at this point used to hearing certain things that send it down a path.
Sure.
But if it looks like it's credentials, I'm sure this is a similar path that they follow.
Okay. Love it.
All right. Before we go into the third big one, do we have any other questions? Well, fantastic. All right. So the third one is.
And let's move on.
Oh, Andrew put in the chat, recommends LAPS. That's a great call.
Yeah.
LAPS that's basically the credential is stored in Active Directory as a secure property. And then the account you're using to deploy at that point just has to have permission to decrypt that, and then it will use those credentials.
Yeah.
LAPS is fantastic. I highly recommend it almost in every situation.
Oh, Marcel, put it in Discord. Oh, look at that, Marcel. Yeah, good idea, actually. Discord's going to be huge. Okay.
All right. So now we're going to kind of go into just more of the general install areas that you kind of see.
Okay.
And
I want to ask you about the success codes. Don't let me forget that.
Success. All right, we can
Adding them to that. I want to know about that.
we can do that in just a bit. But first, I want to cover. So if your installer is using MSI,
That's your favorite.
your error codes are going to be pretty uniform. Where it's going to make it pretty clear unless it's 1603. 1603 is a general fatal error.
We
It
hate
doesn't
that
give
one.
it. But generally, MSI, if you get an error code, you can just, what's this error code in MSI? You're going to get a result.
So MSI is our best friend.
Yeah. If it's not an MSI, those error codes are going to be dependent on whoever built the software. So it could be whatever. So whatever the error code is, you're going to want to dive into that.
Okay, remember what I told you? You're going to be a billionaire if you script out an error code that actually tells you what the error is instead of this nebulous crap. Okay, let's do it.
My response was error codes for executables are dependent on that bit of software.
I have faith that you can do it.
I can't.
Let's get
I
going.
can't broach every software install in history.
You're going to Summit next week. Find some minions. Let's make it happen, Jordan.
No, I'm out.
Okay, Andrew.
So,
Maybe.
so if we see 1603,
Yes.
we have looked into the most common things we see, and usually it is some version of this has already been installed. So 1603 we see common with the software is already installed, or there were some file remnants left behind from an old install,
We need Revo.
or it's missing extra files.
Missing. Okay.
So the main one, if it's already installed and there doesn't have some sort of check, 1603 you can come back with it's already installed, it can install. The other one is if you installed this 3 months ago and the uninstall for that one isn't clean and it leaves a bunch of remnants out, there is a chance that when you go to reinstall it, those remnants are going to block it and cause that error.
Yeah, makes sense.
So either you can track down where those remnants are, manually remove them, or something like Revo that scours.
I love Revo. Okay.
And then the other one is additional files. This is like if you're doing Office 365 and you're supplying a file that it needs for reference. If that is missing, you're likely to get 1603 as well.
I've had that with Adobe products too. They're a pain. Okay.
Yeah, so that's not the sum total of 1603, just because, like I said, fatal error is very general. But that's the three most common we've seen for that one.
But 1603 is a pain, basically.
1603, yeah, that just means general error. It's there's nothing specific. It makes it a bit more difficult.
Okay. Got it.
All right. So you said you want to know about success codes.
Adobe is the worst, Alexander. Yes, I agree. Yes, so I was reading through all the stuff you put together for this, and I want you to talk more about adding the codes there and exactly what it means, because I'm not really sure I'm entirely clear on that. So I wonder if our audience is, they probably are, they're way smarter than me, but can you talk about that a little bit? What exactly it means when you're adding codes there?
Absolutely. So I opened up 7-Zip, and 7-Zip is a EXE, so this was not standard, but we've gone and done the research with that one. These are the common errors we see when it's successfully installed, or codes it returns, not errors.
And those pre-populate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if it's in our package library, those pre-populate. If it's a custom package you built into MSI, we pre-populate the default ones for MSI for success. But if it's an EXE that's not that you built from your own package, you're going to want to find out what those codes are and include them in here.
How am I going to find that? Just
You're going to have to hope that they have it in their own documentation.
Okay, so I'm going to look that up myself.
Absolutely.
And then I'm going to come add it here.
Yep.
Okay, what else can I add here?
So if you're doing like a Windows update, and I think we have a document on that one.
Okay.
I don't think I actually opened that one.
But I think you said I can add versions there, didn't you?
Well, so there it is. Windows update. 17025 means that the patch is already installed, or 17028 means that they don't contain the software that needs the patch.
Okay.
So if you are updating software or you built your own, adding these two codes into the success codes aren't a bad idea, because when it comes back, it's still going to capture, hey, it was this code, but it's not going to come back and say it failed, because in this case, it didn't fail. It's either already patched or this not relevant for the machine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I would prefer in that one to use inventory, where inventory is going to eliminate those that already are patched or don't have it. But if you're not looking to use it against a certain collection, those success codes will absolutely smooth that out and make it so it doesn't give you a false, hey, this failed.
I'm just going to get more information, better information. Okay, that's awesome. I love that.
All right. And do we have any other questions come in?
We do have one.
All right.
And I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I'm hoping maybe you do. Does PDQ use new laps yet? Sincerely, Elmo.
So I know the answer to this, Jordan.
That's good, because I was going to guess.
So I can say that our DNI team is looking at it. I think there were actually some issues with this release. And I think that someone in chat, David Richmond, mentioned don't deploy it if you're on the April security update, because there were some compatibility issues. But no official news on that quite yet. But we are aware of it and we are looking into it.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely one of those, especially if that becomes considered the de facto, this is the most secure way. We are absolutely going to do everything we can to adopt it, because security is very important, especially where by nature of our machine, we're going out and installing software and applications on machines. We want it to be as secure as possible. So I imagine as new labs gets ironed out, I would be surprised if it's not in there. I just don't have a timeline for that.
Okay.
All right. Did we get any other questions, or are we going to...
That is about it.
All right, I'm going to give everyone back 2 minutes. A minute and a half.
Look at you go.
I'm very generous with your time. All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Hopefully this gives you at least an idea on getting started, what it can be. Remote repair, can't stress that one enough.
I like that. I
would absolutely use my DNS script, because scorched earth.
No.
But hopefully this gives you an idea. These are major costs that we see. If you go through this list, you're not seeing anything, then absolutely we want to hear about it. We want to hear about it if you need our help, no matter what. But especially if these aren't there, it means we're in new territory. We'd love to track that down with you. So give us a contact. For PDQ Live, I'm Jordan.
I'm Tara.
Thanks for joining our webcast today. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to our support teams, and please join us on Discord. The link is in the chat. It will also be in the YouTube description. Thanks again, and we'll see you back here next week.